Now, before we get started, are there any questions on any of the assignments thus far? Questions on homework assignments? Yes. Okay, let's see here. Here's one of them. The others that aren't worksheets are listed in Google Classroom for page and problem number. If you don't have the note sheets for those, they will either be in that pile or the book is located in Google Classroom. So you can use one of those two resources. Yes. Because today I think is Scrabble, isn't it? Yeah. First letter of your first name or last name. Because tomorrow is Nerd Day, and I think Thursday is Career.
So what's tomorrow? Crazy
Nerd Day.
Nerd Day?
Mm-hmm.
I should wear a bow tie. I should wear a color bow tie.
All right, guys. What we're doing today is finding the equation of a parabola from the given information. Now, there's two different sets of equations that we're going to have, either vertex form or x-intercept form. Now, we're going to use vertex form whenever they give us the vertex and a point. We'll use x-intercept form when they give us the x-intercepts and a point. So when we look at this first example here, they tell us the vertex of the parabola is the point 3, 2, and that it passes through the point 13, 8. So looking at this here, we first need to determine which of the two equations we're going to use, either vertex form or x-intercept. Well, since it told us what the vertex was, we're going to use vertex form. So we have our y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And for us to get the equation, we need to know the value of a, h, and k. Now the vertex is our point h, comma, k. And we get that from the general form, telling us what the vertex is, which is also telling us the h value is 3 and the k value is 2. And we could go on and plug that in, saying y is equal to a times x minus 3 plus 2. We replace h and k with what they're equal to. H is 3, k is 2, and we get this here. Questions on this so far? Questions on anything we've done so far? Now the only thing we're missing is the value of a. And that's where the other point comes in, because since this point is on the parabola, on the graph, it is telling us that whenever we plug when we plug 13 in for x, because this is the point x comma y, bless you, and we simplify this right side. So whatever the value of a is, times 13 minus 3 squared plus 2, we will get 8. Because the point 13, 8 is telling us whenever the x value is 13, the y value is 8. So what we'll do to find the value of a is plug that point into the equation we have right here. And when we do that, the only variable left in the equation is a itself. So to find the value of a, we plug the point that the parabola is going through, passes through, into it, and then solve for the value of a. Now the first thing we can do is simplify what's inside the parentheses, our 13 minus 3, 10. Now we need to take 10 squared. 10 times 10 is 100. So we have 100a plus 2. What do we need to do next? We would if we did have like terms. 102, 100A and 2 are not like terms, but we do need to get the 100A by itself, so we can subtract 2 from both sides. So that will get us the 100A by itself, because our 2 minus 2 would be 0. And 8 minus 2 is 6. And last but not least, we need to both sides by 100. So we need to take 6 over 100, and we can plug that in. 6 over 100 is 3 over 50, or as a decimal point, 0.06. I'm going to leave it as a fraction. 3 over 50 is our value of A. Questions on how we found A, H, or K? Well, the last thing we need to do is plug the value of A back in, telling us Y is equal to 3 over 50 times X minus 3 squared plus 2. That's it. Questions on anything we've done so far? Let's look at the next one. Example 2. Tells us the vertex of the parabola is the point -5, 9, and it passes through the point -7, -15. Are we going to use vertex form or x-intercept form? Vertex, because it gave us a vertex. So y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Now the vertex is the point, h comma k. In a general sense, any given point on a graph is x, y, but because it's a vertex, we specifically call it h and k. Now the h value is, and the k value is 9. Now we can plug it in, a times x minus -5 squared plus 9. The negative and negative would make a plus. We can simplify that as we go, because we don't necessarily have to change it as we plug it in. So you could plug it in as x plus 5 originally, or x minus -5, then change it to a plus. The same thing is true with our plus k, because if it had been -9, we could have said plus -9. Then once we found the value of a, we could change it to -9 if it was negative, or leave it as plus since it is positive. Does that make sense? So the last thing we need to do is find the value of A, which means we're taking this equation and replacing x and y with their corresponding values. So we're going to replace y with 18 equals A times plus 5 squared plus 9. First thing we need to do is simplify what's inside our parentheses. Exactly. -7 plus 5 would be -2. -2 squared is 4. Because the -2 times -2, negative and negative make it positive. 2 times 2 is 4. Now at this point here, we would subtract 9. We would subtract 9 from both sides, telling us that 4a equals -24. And last but not least, we would divide both sides by 4, which would tell us a is -6. And that's it. Questions on this here? So again, with these here, we're just finding the values of h and k. Use our point to plug in to find a, plug it back in when we're done. Questions on this here? Are we ready for the next one? For example 3, let's see what we're told. We're told that the x-intercepts are the point -7 and -3, and it passes through the point -2, 0.05. Well, x-intercepts is telling us we're using which version? X-intercept form. So our final equation is going to come in the form a times x minus p times x minus q, where p and q are the values of the x-intercepts. Now, the other way we can write an x-intercept is as a point. And the y value of the x-intercept is always going to be 0. The actual y values at every point on the x-axis is actually 0. So we have this here. But that is also telling us our values of p and q, because for this one here we need the values of a, p, and q. Well, what would the value of p be? And q would be? Yes. Or vice versa, because p and q can be interchangeable. Because I could have said p was -3 and q is -7. I just need to pick one as p and the other as q. Now at this point here, we could plug these in. Y is equal to a times x minus -7 times x minus -3. Well, our negative makes a plus in both cases. Now, will p and q always be negative? No. It's just for these here, they're both negative. They could both be positive, or one could be positive, one could be negative. Again, it just depends on the setup of the equation. Now, the only thing we're missing is the value of a, yes? Now, it seems like it should be something different because we have a different starting equation. It should work a little different than vertex form, but it doesn't. Because this is still the point x comma y, and it's still saying when I plug the x value into the equation, we should get its corresponding y. So in this case, it's saying when I plug -2 in for x, I should get a y value of 0.05. So whatever a is, when it's multiplied by our -2 plus 7 and by our -2 plus 3, we should get 0.05. Now at this point here, we could simplify what's inside our parentheses. -2 plus 7 is, -2 plus 3 is 1. 5 times 1 times a is, well, 5a. Last but not least, to get a by itself, we would divide both sides by 5, which will tell us a is 0.01. 0.01. Now we could write this as a fraction. This is going to be 1 over what? Do y'all know? 100. Yeah. So our final answer, we can plug in 0.01 for a times x plus 7 times x plus 3. Or we can write it as y equals 1 over 100 times x plus 7 times x plus 3. Now we do need to write this 0.01 because that one is not understood to be there. We can't just leave it out. The only one we can remove or not have to list is 1.0. The 1 has to be in front of the decimal. Questions on this here? Questions on anything we've done so far? So looking at this here, would we use x-intercept or vertex? X-intercept. Because we know the negative 16 comma 0 and negative 2 comma 0 are the x-intercepts, yes? And we're given a point. But if we look at what we start with, for vertex form, how many points are we given? Yeah, because we're given the vertex and a point, so we're given 2 points. X-intercept form, how many points are we given? Because how many points do we have intercepts? We have 2 points for the x-intercept and then our other point, yes? So we have 3, yes? How many points are we given to start this one? 3, so there's a good chance it's x-intercept form. And most of the time, it'll definitely tell you a point is a vertex. It'll say vertex. But it might also tell you that these are x-intercepts, because they are indeed. And an x-intercept comes in the form of p comma 0 and q comma 0. What's our value of p and q? Yes. Negative 16 and negative 2. So we can plug those in saying y is equal to a times x minus negative 16 times x minus negative 2. It doesn't matter. Because even if we have the negative, that make plus. Is x plus 16 times x plus 2 the same as x plus 2 times x plus 16? Yeah. Because we can multiply in any order, so it doesn't matter which order we list them. As long as you don't keep the signs correct, negative and negative, plugging those in, and don't put it as x, end up simplifying down to x plus 2 times x plus 2, or we leave the 16 or leave out the 2 because we need both p and q. The only time it would be, say, x plus 2 and x plus 2 is if both x-intercepts were the value of negative 2, unless it repeated itself. But now we need to find the value of a. So we're going to plug in the point negative 1872, telling us that 72 is equal to a times negative 18 plus 16 times negative 18 plus 2. Negative 18 plus 16 is negative 2. Negative 18 plus 2 is negative 16. And lastly, if we multiply negative 16 and negative 2 together, they would make a positive 32. Now we can't plug a into the calculator. Almost got it. Parentheses, negative. This part here is what we were simplifying down, yes? Calculator can do that part for us. We don't necessarily have to do that all by hand, but it'll do it for us. We can't plug a into the calculator because the 84s or the 30xs, either one of these two, needs a value for a. It needs a value for that variable. So if you try plugging it in, it'll take whatever the last value that was plugged in and simplify it there. So it won't give you what you actually wanted. Now the last thing we need to do is to divide both sides by 32. So 72 over 32 is 9 over 4. 2.25. We replace A with its value, and we have our equation. Now we could write it as 2.25. We can write it in decimal form. We can have it as a mixed or as a improper fraction. Do not write it as a mixed number. Do not write it as 2 1/4, because with equations we want it as either an improper fraction or a decimal. We don't want mixed numbers. Questions on this here? How do we feel about these here? Good? Would we like to see another one? We feel good with these here? Okay. Yes. So I'm going to pass these out here.